Oh, beautiful. Excellent. Okay, well, welcome everybody in Parramatta and Armidale. I'd like to just welcome to the lectern to start off our Director of the Future Campus in Parramatta, Robert Fields.
Well, hello everyone, welcome. My name's Rob Field and I'm the Director for the Future Campus here at Parramatta. I'm very happy to welcome you all to the Future Campus and the first of our Strengthening Your Graduate Reputation event. So to those students, staff, alumni and business representatives here today and in Armidale, and those watching this online later in the week, I'd like to make an acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge and respect the culture of this land's traditional custodians, whose stories have been part of this land and water since time began. We pay homage to present custodians and their ancestors who treated this land and water with respect through wisdom and understanding that ensured our resources for our sustainability. The Future Campus is UNE's vision for the future, the UNE model for education support of current students, for assisting future students, and to be a vehicle for engagement in the community and being a community leader. This event today is one of a number of activities that we run here at the Future Campus during the trimester. We assist students from the point when they are a future student, a freshly enrolled student, a continuing student, a resuming student, a soon-to-graduate student, and then as alumni. So it's not quite cradle to the grave, but we do a lot of the things in between. So if you're interested in further events like we're running today, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter for updates, and also there's lots of email announcements that go out about it. So my takeaway for you today to think about while our proceedings are on is to take advantage of what's on offer at the Future Campus, at the Armidale campus, and our online resources, the academic and the non-academic. Take time to develop your personal network while at UNE. I'd like to thank Elise and Jade who've put together this event today, the UNE Business School, the Study Abroad and Exchange Office, the New England Awards Office, the business representatives who've come along today, and the alumni for their input and participating in what is clearly an innovative technology approach for career development for our UNE students. We're linking the city with the country, the town with the gown. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rob. Okay, so up next I'd like to welcome Dr. Lou Conway and also Dr. Michelle Goyen to the microphone in Armidale to present a welcome and a range of advice.
Thank you, Elise, and thank you, Robert, for introducing us. We're just going to turn on to lectern view. Hi, I'm Lou Conway, and this is Michelle Goyen standing here beside me. So just to, firstly, just to tell you about our roles as well, but Michelle and I are the course coordinators for the Bachelor of Business and the Bachelor of Accounting and postgraduate accounting as well. But we really care about your graduate future. So Michelle and I are really like the organisers behind the scene to make sure that your program of study is organised and as best it can be. But we're just going to run you through. If we go to the next slide, actually, Elise, Michelle's just going to talk to you in detail, firstly, about what our role as course coordinators is.
Thanks, Lou. Does the slide move? Okay, so what we do as course coordinators is, look, as Lou was saying, oversee the degrees, make sure that they're tied to industry as best we can, make sure that we keep on top of accreditation issues for the disciplines that require accreditation, and to give you guys advice too. Sometimes you might not necessarily follow the standard path that we've put forward because of your individual circumstances and experience. There might be other things that you would like to do. So we can help you find out if it's possible for you to do it in your degree structure. So we can approve changes if you need to do something different. We can also help you study overseas. And Lou will talk a bit more about that. But in addition to studying overseas, sometimes you can do some units overseas. Sometimes there might be some units that UNE doesn't offer, but would fit in one of our degrees and it's offered at another university, you can apply for permission to enrol elsewhere. And we can have a look at that and see if it can match your electives or, something would be an appropriate substitute. So that's something good to know too. Course coordinators change. We get 2 years, maybe 4 years if we want to back up for a second lot of 2 years. So rather than look for Lou or myself, always go through Ask UNE, because they'll put you in touch with whoever the coordinator happens to be for your degree.
So I guess when we think about your career, we think it starts from year one. So we're delighted that there are some of you here today who are in first year, because part of actually building your graduate reputation is actually choosing your majors, and those majors give you that kind of depth of specialty of knowledge. And that's a great thing to build on and to actually promote as part of your job application process or thinking about your career in the future. So one of the sayings that Michelle and I have is, would you like fries with that? And, when we're talking about your degree is really your basis to start with. And really what you need to do is to keep adding in skills and, or to study a language. And I know I'm delighted that somebody here who's studying Japanese as part of their business degree, because it is that kind of adding a number of skills and abilities into your degree. So if we go to the next slide. So just thinking about how else you can add that extraordinary into your degree. So the first thing is to look for those paid internships, and one of the ones you can see, the previous slide actually, Elise. Can we just go back one? You'll see we're advertising one here from Macquarie Bank, which is specifically for people with disability. But really contacting our careers office to find out what paid internships are available. We do have some with Community Mutual Group, which is based here in Armidale, but they're a regional banking service. So, you might actually look to finding an internship close to where you're actually located. The other thing is actually trying to fit Work 300 into your degree. So even if you're an undergrad or a postgrad, it's called Work 500, but a Work 300 gives you 120 hours in a workplace. And while that's unpaid, it often leads to jobs. So NAB, for example, have offered us 2 Work 300 places, one here in Armidale, one in Tamworth, in November. And of course, that's part of their recruiting cycle. It's a great way for a business to see your capability as well. So the other thing, and we certainly, when we took students on a study tour to China last year, we heard from employers looking for students who actually have some kind of international experience. So if you can fit it into your degree, look at doing an international exchange, or at least trying to do an international study tour. So you're actually just broadening the way you view the world, but also how you might work in a diverse, culturally diverse environment. So there are also student competitions, whether that be might be writing an assignment or actually entering a photo competition, which is one of the current ones that we have going in the business school, which is a competition about, taking a photo of yourself in some kind of enterprise and telling us about it. But those things actually do lift your profile and give you something to talk about as well as part of your job application process. You may also have seen some of the media about UNE Enactus. That's a student-led body. Then we have won for the second time the Australian national competition just recently, and our UNE Enactus team is going to Johannesburg to compete in the World Enactus titles. So those sorts of opportunities really enable you to develop all those teamwork skills, problem solving. And again, that networking, when those students are away at competitions, they are meeting, the head of Walmart or significant people operating in business, and, it can just be that conversation or sitting with somebody over a meal that kind of leads to a job opportunity. So we really encourage you to look at how you can add opportunities to your degree. The New England Award, and we will have somebody presenting on the New England Award recently, but that's a way of kind of capturing all those other things that you do during your undergraduate degree, but also really trying to find those leadership or research roles. So sometimes academics who you may encounter also have research projects that they're undertaking. One way of actually getting involved is actually offering, to be part of some of those activities. So they're kind of ways that we see that you can extend your degree. So on the next slide, Elise, I just wanted to show you some of the marketing around. Here we have the China Study Tour, which is going in November this year, which is open to business students, but also an international agribusiness competition that Jade was heavily involved in organising, where 4 students went to University of Minneapolis just recently in June to compete in a world competition around agribusiness. So those sort of things give you that kind of reach and stretch into operating in a different domain.
Sorry, excuse my disorganisation. This is all my fault. Actually, something that I wanted to add to what Lou was saying, I was reading today in my own unit materials, actually, about signalling theory. And if you've done any economics or any finance or maybe accounting, you'll have learned a bit about signalling theory. And this particular example was about signalling in the job market. Yeah? Now, 20 years ago, hardly anyone had degrees. So getting a degree was the signal. That was the way you showed that you were higher quality than the rest of the applicants. But today, you think about how many people that you know have got degrees. Higher education is a lot more accessible, so having the degree on its own now isn't going to set you apart. So you need your degree and that bit extra to set you apart, to show you're involved in university life, you know, whether it be team sport or something like team academic skills like an actor's, or showing you've got the initiative to go and take an internship or doing the Work 300 unit and, you know, getting out there and having some hands-on experience. So anything that you can put on your CV that differentiates you from other people will help, because people, you know, loads of people apply for jobs and someone has to read loads of applications. So anything that you can put that can catch their attention in a good way is really worth doing. Thank you. Lou and I have come up with some top tips from course coordinators about how to increase your probability of getting work, strengthen your career prospects. So we just need Elise to go to the next slide. Sorry, thank you. So if you happen to be in an area that has a professional body, like accounting has professional bodies, HR has professional bodies, often the professional bodies have student memberships. So if you join up with those, you can get access to some resources that they've got, and they're usually pretty inexpensive. Yeah, they only charge a lot when you're a full member. But you can access resources that they have, and it shows it's a way of signalling that your commitment to future employers, you know, that it's not something that you just came, well, I can't get a job anywhere else, so I thought I'd do this. Yeah, it shows that you've got commitment to what you wanted to do. Having a daughter who's just recently been through this process, if you want to go to one of the big accounting firms or one of the big banks or the government, the graduate intake programs, so if you're in third year, they usually open and close pretty early in third year. So if you're looking for a job when you finish, you've really got to start looking at the start of third year. Yeah, and they don't appoint until, you know, the whole year later, but just watch out that you don't miss the entry point. Lou says that she's had lots of experience with employers saying that they now look at LinkedIn. So that's like a professional network where you can say what you're interested in, and employers might look there. And that would be a good thing if you're in LinkedIn. Yeah. What could be a really bad thing is what you've got on Facebook. Really bad thing. Yeah. So even if you've got maximum privacy settings, sometimes employers can still see things that you follow or that you have liked. Yeah. So I would recommend that you not use your name in Facebook. Yeah, not even close to your name. Again, using my daughter as an example, she had an appalling experience with an employer and Facebook, and she wasn't actually using her proper first name on Facebook, but now she's got her dog's name. Yeah, so that way they won't be able to find her. But they found her by looking at her email address. even though it was a name that she wasn't, her family name was the same, but her first name was different. So you cannot be too careful with Facebook. I know I sound like a mother, but it's better not to regret it later. And it's not necessarily something you've posted. It could be something else that somebody's posted while you aren't looking. Yeah, because we all know that happens too. You probably won't get the first job you apply for. And maybe if you do, you didn't aim high enough. Yeah, maybe there was something better that you could have got. But if you don't get a job, and be prepared to aim for the top and apply for as many you think that you can possibly get. And if you get knocked back the first time, just go, right, why did I get knocked back? If you can get feedback on it, that's good. You can assess your own performance and think, well, I could have done this a bit better. And just look at every interview as a learning experience. So by the time you get to the job that you really want, you've got it nailed. Because so many people have degrees these days, and the way employers are recruiting has changed, often employers will take you at a really entry level rather than a graduate position. They'll still have graduate position programs, but they are ultra competitive, and don't be too upset if you don't get one of those. So the next thing to look for is something that's not graduate entry, but is working in the firm that you want to work in. And then when you get in there, you can impress them with your amazing skills and your knowledge and work your way up quite swiftly. So some firms have a policy of not taking graduates through a graduate entry program now. They start them at the lowest possible level and then see the ones that they want to keep. Put them all on as casuals until they go, yep, I'll have that one and I'll have that one. Network all the time. So who do you know could help you get a job? Who could you know that could help you get a job? How do you meet people that can help you get a job? And be curious about everything. So, for example, if you do take one of those entry-level positions, ask a lot of questions. Don't sit there just answering the phone or whatever it is you're doing in your entry-level position, but really be engaged with what they're doing. Yeah, and build up your confidence, and maybe you can even suggest ways to improve what they're doing, and then they will think you're amazing.
Thanks, Michelle. And just also to always think there's postgraduate study. So we also have some great programs here as well that just kind of work you through your career. So always ask what's next and what we can add to that. So that concludes our brief introduction, because I know we're all keen to hear the number of speakers coming. I'm just going to introduce you to John. So John McKinnon from the UNE International Office.
Good evening, everyone. I'm not sure where I should be looking, so hopefully I'm looking in the right direction. Okay. Firstly, congratulations to the Armidale people who came out tonight on such a wet night. More rain, not snow this time. And hello to Parramatta. First time I've done this, so I'm quite excited. So I'm the Study Abroad and Exchange Officer at UNE International. So my job is to ensure that students know about the programs that we offer. I've been doing the position now for 2 years, and in that time our mobility, or the number of students going overseas, has at least 5 times, increased by 5 times to what it was previously. So we were doing maybe 40 students a year. We're doing 200 to 300 this year, hopefully. So that's not bad. And the majority are undergraduates. So there are many programs now where students can actually go for shorter periods of time or longer periods of time. Historically, there used to only be exchanges. So students really only had a chance to go overseas if they wanted to go for a whole semester or a year. Now you can go for anything from 2 weeks, and we can help you with funding, which is why I'm here. So if you have any interest about going overseas, particularly if you're doing business or law or anything to do with the UNE Business School, I can probably help you. I can usually at least get you somewhere for maybe a 2-week short term, but business students have electives and they also have many transferable units that can be offered throughout the world. Just some of the destinations that we offer for exchange, whereas an exchange, for instance, is at least 1 semester, We have University of Copenhagen in Denmark, University of Essex, University of East Anglia, both in England. We have universities in France, Germany, Austria. We also have universities in the United States, Canada, China, Hong Kong, Japan, Spain, and probably others I've forgotten, such as Italy. And we're expanding all the time. So I can offer probably 70 to 80 students places per semester. I'm currently getting 15 to 20. So there's plenty of opportunities out there. There's also tours, study tours that UNE are now putting together and is offering to students. And I'm helping find money and assistance for that. On top of all this, we have a program called Oz Help, which is similar to your HEX help that you use, but it allows you to borrow money to go overseas. You can have 2 of these loans in your lifetime, and they're for about $6,500 to anywhere in the world other than Asia, and about $7,500 to Asia. So that's enough at least for a semester. And on top of that, we're offering government grants and things like that, so you could have maybe $12,000 at your disposal, say, to go to the US, of which some of that you have to pay back, but some of it we can give as a gift. So if you would like more information, because this is really just a little gloss on what I do, you're welcome to contact me at studyabroad@une.edu.au, or I believe there should be this little card available for everyone. If you don't have them, particularly here, let me know and I'll get some to you before the end of the evening. And I think in Sydney we have that already. So at this point I'll hand back to Lou. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And just in terms of tying that back, if you identify that you'd like to do an exchange, then just contacting Michelle and I to actually approve your program of study is the way to go. And we work closely with John to make it happen. I'm sorry Alicia Zirkin is not able to be here, but just to put in front of you the New England Award, it's great to register for it and to collect the activities that you do, whether they be social, cultural. Some of your casual paid work or voluntary work can count. And it's a proud moment when we stand at graduation and the Chancellor asks those students who are eligible for the New England Award to stand up. And so that it is acknowledging students who've contributed into their communities, wherever they may be, and participated in a number of activities which really add that great fabric to the places where we are. So I encourage you to look at that, to just search the New England Award in the UNE website and to get the detail on that. So we're going to hand over because we are keen to hear from our first speaker. Elise, shall I hand back to you?
Certainly, thanks Lou. I'll just pop it back on. Everyone. Okay, can you see us at Parramatta there, Armidale? Yep, beautiful. Okay, so next up I'd like to welcome Richard Hambley from Dixon Advisory in Canberra. He's going to be discussing a range of different points about Dixon Advisory and also some advice for students.
Thank you. Thanks, Elise, and thanks to Rob for allowing me to come and speak with you tonight. I've got to operate this. Oh, cool. Technology working. And welcome to everyone who's attending tonight. Look, the fact that you're here means you probably are thinking about life after university. You're certainly thinking about careers, which is great. If there's people you think that might benefit from that, definitely tell them to have a look at these slides and listen to this afterwards. Certainly there's probably some things that you know that you should be doing and certainly you're working towards in terms of looking at the career beyond university. There's probably things that you don't need to be doing, but you are actually doing those things anyway, which is fantastic. And then there's going to be those things you don't know you need to be doing, and you are and actually aren't doing that either. Look, tonight, and I think I was given, I've told initially 15 minutes maybe, but I might be down to 10. So
flexible now.
yeah, a bit flexible. So look, I'll probably talk for about that 15-minute mark, and I'm going to run through a number of certain things, particularly about what employees are actually looking for. And then what I want to do is draw on, I guess, my experiences and where I may have gone right or wrong. And then I want to get some of the nuts and bolts about, I guess, what Dixon Advisory does, what sort of career opportunities we have, and certainly then looking at, I guess, the life of a Dixon graduate and the recruitment process. And in doing that, I guess I'm looking at a number of things that professional service firms do, so it is very adaptable across the board as well. Just by way of introduction, introducing myself, I'm not actually a UNE graduate. I went to the Australian National University and did a Commerce and Environmental Science degree, and then did some postgraduate studies and a Master of Business and Environmental Management. I am joined by my colleague Craig Cameron, who is sitting over there on the Alumni Panel, and he will be there afterwards to participate in that panel. And certainly, he's looking forward to that, and is an alumni. So, look, what are employers looking for? And you might look at this and say, yeah, look, that's all pretty obvious, so I better talk into the mic. I'm new to this as well. I like to wander. So I'm sort of hampered here. But look, there's a few things there that on that board you're going, yeah, look, that's pretty obvious. But hopefully there's some things on there that you're thinking, oh, I wasn't really sure that's what employers are looking for. Some of those skills you are proactively acquiring while you're at university, certainly some technical skills and all those sorts of things. There's a whole raft of soft skills out there that, again, you're probably not even aware you're learning, but certainly as an employer, they're the sorts of things we're interested in. A lot of people come out with that degree and we go, that's great, that's a starting point, but we're really looking for some of those soft skills that you're probably developing throughout that university career, and before as well. So look, the first one there is the continuous learning. I think Dr. Conway mentioned before about the postgraduate studies sorts of things, and sort of life beyond a graduate, sort of an undergraduate degree. But certainly, the learning journey begins when you walk out of the door of university as well. Certainly, as an employer, and certainly where I'm from, you're always going to be looking to do some specialisation one way or the other. Certainly doing that part-time while you were working full-time. So always have that in the back of your mind. I fell on that mistake of walking out the door and going, well, that's my last exam, Echo 3, see you later, I'm done. And I couldn't have been further from the truth. So make sure that you've got that in the back of your mind about that continuous learning. And that can be the technical side, getting the degrees, but also the ongoing learning as well. The other one there is the problem solving. Again, yeah, I'm at university, of course, I do it every day. I go to lectures and workshops and that sort of thing. I have to solve problems. That's true. When you get to a work environment, though, you're going to be have problems put in front of you all the time. Some of them will be of a technical nature, and some of them certainly will be of, I guess, the nature where you have to work in a professional work environment, work those things through. You need to adapt those skills. You need to bring what you've learned from university and apply that into professional work environment. So certainly that problem-solving capacity is something that we're looking for as well. Effective communication. I didn't put these in any particular order. Certainly I'd probably put that right near the top. It's so important that you can communicate effectively. If you can't do that, you're going to have trouble getting a job in the first place because you probably haven't done well putting the resume together. Maybe if you do get to the point where you have that interview, maybe you won't be able to communicate and sell yourself either as well. But what we're really looking for is someone that can come in, and certainly in a professional service organisation such as Dixon Advisory, we're looking for people who can sit down in front of people, solve complex problems. You've done a 5 or 4 year degree, solve those complex problems and put them in a layperson's, language, if you like. And that takes a real skill. So definitely effective communication is very important. The ability to work in a team, hopefully that sort of stands for itself. Certainly when I was finishing university, there was a lot of sort of team-based sort of projects that we're doing, and that was really geared to making sure we recognise that aspect of it. Again, look, in any professional work environment, you're going to have people with different skills coming to the table to solve a number of different problems that you have to come with one solution or two solutions. You've got to work collaboratively as a team, know what your strengths and weaknesses are, work out what you can actually add value to, and what you need to probably step back and let someone else come in as well. So that ability to work well and collaboratively in a team is definitely important. The flip side of that is, I guess, the self-reliance, being able to work in an autonomous sort of work environment as well. There's certainly going to be times when you will need to do that. And know, I guess, the right time to put up your hand, ask for assistance, but at the same time, I guess, a bit of self-awareness of when is the opportune time to do that. The last one is the time management. Look, again, a skill that you are learning all the time throughout university is one that, you've got deadlines. I know that from assignments, that sort of thing. A lot of you probably hold down part-time jobs. And have busy, social lives or whatever it might be, family lives. The ability to bring that together, you are learning those skills. That is something that employers definitely need to be are looking for, because you're going to have to meet deadlines again. Just because you're outside of university, of course, there's going to be work deadlines and that sort of thing as well. So for me, they're the key, 6 key things that at a higher level that I guess employers are looking for. Again, Dr. Conway, I think, mentioned the importance of bringing that, getting that onto a resume and being able to communicate that effectively to a prospective employer. So where did I go right or wrong? And look, what I'm really saying there is just bringing, I guess, some of my experiences to the table, which I found valuable. And dare I say, maybe some of the things I haven't done. But I'm thinking, okay, geez, if I had my time over, I might have done that a little bit better, or might have done that at all. Look, the first one there is that work experience. I go through resumes all the time, and look, I love the fact that people have McDonald's or working at Woolies or wherever at 7-Eleven. That is the sort of stuff I go to first. I mean, as I said before, look, the degree is one thing, and I would certainly get there. The fact that's got you, I guess, the bit of paper in front of me. But I'm looking at all those other experiences that you bring to the table as well. I worked at David Jones selling suits all through my university career. What's that demonstrate to a prospective employer? When I went to KPMG and had that interview the first time, okay, here's a guy who could stand on his own 2 feet, I like to think. I got myself through university, not all by myself. I certainly had support along the way from the family or my parents, but I was able to actually stand on my own 2 feet. I was learning skills when at David Jones. I'm dealing with people all the time. I have to look at time management. I still have to go to my uni lectures, but I've got to turn up from a 5 o'clock shift on Friday night or Saturday morning or whatever it is, Sunday afternoon. So I put any sort of work experience on there. I mean, you don't want the full raft. I mean, for example, I used to roll tennis courts out in the local tennis court from when I was 8. But that was something that actually came up in the interview when I was there, saying, look, I worked at David Jones, and look, we really like that, Richard, it's great. Let's tell me a bit more about that. I said, actually, I've been working since I've been 8 years old. Hey, how good's that? What's that sort of communicate to an employer? Here's a guy who wants to get going, get on with his own life. He's willing to stand on his own 2 feet and move forward. So I definitely think it would be a bit discerning when and where you communicate that, but certainly putting things like that. Don't feel ashamed to put things that you think, this isn't even related to accounting or some business. Look, any work experience is good work experience. Likewise, extracurricular activities. I love to see that. Look, they often act as a really good icebreaker, if nothing else, for an employer when you're in an interview. Like dance classes, or you're playing the local soccer team, or you like music or reading, or whatever it is. But it also indicates, I guess, if they are in playing soccer, okay, here's a person who likes, he works in a team all the time, or plays in a team all the time. There's skills that can bring back over to the office environment. You got to pass, and people have strengths and weaknesses. It might sound silly, but certainly if someone with that who's been brought up in that sort of environment is going to be able to adapt very quickly to a professional environment, in my experience. I've mentioned postgraduate studies as well. Some of you probably already are doing the postgraduate studies, but certainly, again, where I'm from, there's that specialisation, whether it's doing a CA, CPA, going to RG 146 or whatever sort of advice, technical training that you need to do. That's something you need to keep on doing. Keep on learning, I had that as the last point there, but certainly always be learning. And it doesn't mean it has to be necessary from the university, but certainly be always picking things up from the environment that you're immersing yourself in. I've got what to give, what to take. Be self-aware. Know what your strengths, know what your weaknesses are, know when to put yourself forward and say, okay, this is something I can be really of assistance to for. Know when you know your weaknesses. We all have strengths and weaknesses. Know what they are, and so you go, okay, I can work on those weaknesses. I can certainly leverage off my strengths, and so I guess in that way you're working very well in a team. The second last point there, which will be my last on this slide, is certainly look at having mentors. Who do you admire? Try and, I guess, follow them. I mean, ideally they would know that you're you want to be a mentoree, and you can actually sit down and have coaching with them. But look, there might be some people out there you admire. There might be someone on TV or a business personality that you sit down and you go, geez, I like the way that guy or a lady operates. What was their history? What did they do right? And sort of, I guess, try and emulate that and do better than they are as well. But certainly, I think all through your career I've done it, and I'd encourage everyone else to be doing it, is having mentors along the way to help you. It's a big world out there, and drawing on people's experiences is only going to help you. So look, what I want to do now is ultimately get to the point where I'm talking about, I guess, the recruitment process, opportunities there are at Dixon Advisory. In order to do that, I do want to take a step back and just discuss a little bit about what we do, because you probably don't know what we do yet. If you're from Canberra, where I am, certainly it is a Canberra-based firm, and people know Darryl Dixon and Dixon Advisory quite well, but in certainly Melbourne and the Sydney markets, probably not so well. But ultimately, we are an organisation that helps Australian families manage their wealth, if you like. We do that in a number of ways, but particularly through self-managed superannuation. As you can see, we certainly have 400 staff and over 15,000 clients. We are relatively big and have grown quite rapidly, if you like, and we have $5 billion dollars under management. Key locations: we are actually based in Sydney. We have been since 2006, Melbourne since 2007, and as I said, we were founded in Canberra. I guess the operations there really kicked off in a real sense from about early noughties, about 2001. We are actually now also based in New York, and we have 150 people there. The business there is quite different. It's really about running a residential property fund. But certainly the offices are located in Australia. Are all about dealing with clients, high wealth individuals typically, but helping them manage their finances. So what are the key service units? And looking through this, maybe you can see an area there that might be attractive to you. The three key ones are from the left of the screen as you look at it. The financial advisory team, can be sometimes called financial planning, but people with actuarial, economics, finance style of degrees. Really what we're doing there is looking at wealth creation, tax minimisation strategies for our clients. It's got nothing to do with investments and providing investment advice. It really is just around that higher level strategy stuff. The SMSF accounting and management, and look, that's the team I am actually part of. We are an accounting service. It's a business services sort of firm, if you could draw a parallel there. We do specialise in superannuation and self-managed superannuation though. And look, it's very much a client-facing role, and all of these are, which again is why we think it's so important that you have those communication skills and can adapt quickly to talking with people. And the investment advisory team, which my colleague Craig Cameron's actually from as well, but again, looking for finance, actuarial, economics degrees. The stockbrokers, if you like, the people that make investment recommendations to our clients, our 15,000 clients, they sit down and look at the risk profiles and that sort of thing, so they can give you the best sort of advice around investments. Some of the auxiliary service we have is also like lawyers. We go for lawyers with particularly estate planning advice, and also there's insurance and mortgage advice. Property, we have a property team that helps people acquire properties, the whole go-to-woe sort of purchasing a property as well. Look, the employment opportunities that we have full-time and casual positions available. And certainly we've found it a really good way is having people come in. We always say with the casuals, 20 hours a week while they're completing their degrees. And then, look, there's always that opportunity, certainly based on performance and availability, of course, to roll that into a full-time roll straight into a graduate position. There are positions in all business areas. And then, look, there's two, I guess, inroads to that. There's the graduate program, and that's the program we run from around February through to March for the following, so it's for people in their penultimate year ultimately, the following year, starting in, I guess, the February of the following year. Very similar to, I guess, a lot of the big accounting firms. And the other one is the internship program. It runs over I guess, the summer break for people at university. From the last couple of weeks in December, runs into the early stages of January, probably finished around the late January. Gives you about 7 to 8 weeks of experience across one of those three business lines. Those applications for those are actually now open. If you go to our website, you'll see there's an application process to go through. Look, it is a really good way. You come in, it's fully paid, 8 weeks, great experience. If nothing else, it's something on your CV. Definitely can lead to casual employment and, as I say, ultimately go on to that sort of graduate role as well. So I think that's a good one to look at the moment. Look at these. That's some funky. Whoop. How do I go back? Sorry. Just the recruitment process, and this is ours. Again, very similar. I mean, as I said, I've come from KPMG, so it's very similar to what the accounting firms would be running as well. But there's an assessment process. So once the application process closes, there's an assessment process, and that would then lead, preferably to, I guess, some web-based testing if you got through that initial stage. There may be a bit of a phone screen in between there as people would want to ring you up and just say, look, just want to have a chat about your CV, have a bit of a chat to you. Say, great, we want to offer you the opportunity to sit down and do some web-based testing. That web-based testing is really aptitude style of testing, numeracy, verbal reasoning, that sort of thing. And look, most organised professional service organisations are doing that now. And then that will roll into an interview process. And typically, very similar to everywhere, you have two interviews to go through. It gives you the opportunity to, I guess, come in, assess the situation, and also, obviously, on the other side of things, the employer, and also maximise the number of people you get exposure to within the organisation as well. Typically around the four-odd week mark, you'd experience on that front. Profile of a Dixon employee, I am conscious of time, so I'll keep it moving. But this really reflects, I guess, those key things that I was talking about of what an employer is looking for. Definitely always talking about that learning, the team player, effective communicator, and self-motivated as well. So how are you going to communicate that to a prospective employer? Think about that. Think about how you put together your resume, because they're the things that we want to be able to see. And you need to be able to back that up and demonstrate it. Work out the best time to be drawing on these sorts of things as well. Don't want to put everything on the, my scout badges that I got when I was in year 2. They may definitely come into the conversation if you are having an interview as well. Look, life as a Dixon graduate, again, very similar to a lot of professional service organisations, but there's formal on-the-job training, formal and on-the-job training. We do technical workshops at Dixon Advisory. You get run for about 5 months every year, and all staff in the accounting team do it, just to keep up to date with all the necessary changes to the legislation. Support in completing postgraduate studies. Certainly if we're saying that you need to do a CA, CPA, RG 146, whatever it is, certainly we financially back that. We also give you time off for study, which is, again, very similar to other organisations. We like to give you exposure to a wide variety of tasks. We recognise people have strengths and weaknesses. We want to make sure we play on those strengths, make sure we get the right role for you. Progression's based on performance, definitely. And working in a young, dedicated team, we all have sort of, I guess, common values and goals. I think that's all I've got. I was going to take questions, but certainly maybe it's more appropriate if that waits to the end, I'd suggest, in this forum. Yeah, we'll do questions after. Yep, great. Okay. Thanks so much for your time.
And thanks very much to Richard. So next up, I'd like to welcome Inam Haq from Deloitte. And he's going to introduce himself and tell us some advice about his experiences and his advice for you.
Thanks, Elise. And thank you to Rob, who invited us. So, look, I think Richard has done me a favor. He's actually gone through a fair bit of detail in there, so I probably won't go through some of those details. What I probably just want to introduce the firm, what Deloitte is, and probably how the accounting profession works, I guess, broadly within Australia. And then talk through some of our personal experience, some tips, and then we'll probably take questions, I guess, after the formal session is over and done with. So just a bit of an idea. So Deloitte is one of the big four, so it's the number 2 within Australia. Big four being big four accounting firms, so you probably hear the name time and time again. Reality is they work as effectively as a training ground for most of the graduates that go through the profession in Australia and globally. Having said that, the stuff they do in Deloitte is no different to what happens at Dixon Advisory or any other professional accounting services firm. So if you get to if you are one of the ones who usually get into the big four or get to one of the second tier or Dixon Advisory, I think they're pretty much giving you the same training. What you got to do is make the best of the training that you get in one of these firms. So don't be worried about whether you got in the biggest one or the smallest one. Just make the best use of the opportunities that you're given. Within Deloitte, we got 6 functional areas that talks about tax, auditing and assurance. We got financial advisory. We got Deloitte Private. And effectively, what you'll find is that it's quite similar to what you see in other professional services firms as well. Typically, when people come through, they don't really have a very clear picture of what they want to achieve out of their careers. So I think it's probably a good idea if you can do a bit more research before you go into an interview, or even before the interview, do a bit more research as to what these different functional areas do. And if you find an area where you particularly like, try to go into that one. What you'll find in your career is that if you like something quite a lot, you'll actually put more discretionary effort into it. You actually like it, you actually shine at that particular job. So don't just pick, these are 6 areas, I'll just pick the one that comes through me, that I'm offered a job in. Try to see if you really like something and try to pick that one. In terms of my personal experience, look, I actually started my life as an intern, a professional life, sorry, not my life. As a vacationer at Arthur Andersen, so that goes back a long way. I started off my life in tax. So I've worked with similar to private client services, similar to what Dixon Advisory, part of the looking after some of the high net worth individuals. I gradually moved into more business services and then more into auditing. So I've kind of had a few, career transitions over that time. And the key to making the transition is to finding something that you like and you can offer to an employer, and then have some skills that you can offer to the employer to start off with, but then also have some areas of improvement, some areas where you're going to learn into the future. My tip for the degree is probably think of the specialization as you go along. So you talk about I'm sure in UNE, there are lots of specialization in terms of marketing, accounting, HR, people management, so lots of other different options available. If your heart is particularly set on a particular option, try to make sure you do most of your electives in that area. It gives you an understanding whether you really like it or you just think you like it. And secondly, it probably helps you in your postgraduate studies afterwards as well. So certainly when I was going through the degree, I wanted to do my CA. So if you want to do your CA, there are certain courses you have to do in your second and third year as part of your commerce or economics degree. So if you think you want to do marketing or you want to do something in securities, want to work as a broker, for example, or investment bank, try to see what courses are available in the uni and try to do those. They will help you in the long term. And probably the other thing I'll probably just add on the tips of the degree is that in this day and age, most of the accounting and economics and commerce degrees are seen as a base. So you've done your 3, 4, 5-year degree, and then get some experience in the professional environment, but then don't think that that's probably going to be your degree, that's going to be your career for the rest of your life. People will actually change their careers. I'm sure there's some statistics out there probably 3, 4, or 5 times now. Whereas if you go back, say, a couple of generations ago, you started a job with a firm and you stuck to that firm for the rest of your life. That's not the case anymore. And it's not just people are changing the employer, the people are changing their careers now. So feel that, okay, well, if you want to do something, do it. Think of that career for, let's say, for 5, 10, 15-year horizon, but be ready and be willing to make the change afterwards as and when you get there. And what people will be thinking of once you are at that transition point is, okay, what kind of experience have you got? Have you got any global experience in terms of doing either some internship overseas, either as part of your working experience with your employer? Have you actually gone out and, say, worked on a 3-month or a 6-month or a 2-year secondment somewhere overseas? That could be somewhere in Europe, in North America, somewhere in Asia, anywhere that you feel that you got some skills for. I would encourage you to have that experience as part of your professional life. The other point I would like to emphasize is probably the balance between the marks and the work experience. Wherever you can find a job that is probably going to beat, if I can use that word, your academic marks. So where you can find some work experience, either professional or whether working in a retail environment or anywhere else for that matter, your work experience is probably going to keep you in good stead as compared to your academic marks. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want you to get the bare minimum marks or anything like that. But as an employer, we want to have people who actually got some life experience, some work experience, and they can offer that as a potential employee. And to finish things off, I guess what we look for in a candidate, I think I'll probably like to make 2 points there. One is the balance. So I think at the end of the day, the most of the people in our profession, as much as we sit behind a computer, most of the job is about people interaction. Is how do you actually deal with people? How can you relate to them? How can you understand what the issues and the problems they are facing, and how do you actually help them achieve their goals? At the end of the day, if I'm working in an accounting firm or in a consultancy arrangement, my success is linked to the success of my client. So I need to be able to feel the pain and the highs and the lows of what my client is feeling. So probably the best thing you can do is probably develop that kind of a soft skills, that empathy, that you can link yourself to the client that you're dealing with. And if you can demonstrate that as part of your interview, you probably go a long way in securing a job and probably having a fruitful and a successful professional career. And the other thing I would say is probably finding the right balance. Most of our jobs are about judgment, are about finding the balance between academic marks and work experience, about technical knowledge and a practical solution. And at the end of the day, if you are the kind of person who can find the right balance between, say, self-reliant and being a team player, then you'll be quite successful in your professional career. So probably I'll stop there, at least if that's okay, and I'll be happy to take any questions afterwards. Thank you. Over to you, Lisa.
Thanks very much, Anam. So following on from that, I might just also introduce myself. I forgot earlier. My name's Elise Dale. I'm the Student Services Officer at UNE's FutureCampus, and I also engage in a lot of events planning for careers for students as well. So following on from that, I'd like to introduce our Alumni Panel. So first off, I'd like to introduce Cherry Dimopoulos. She's completed a Master of Commerce in Professional Accounting. She's just about to graduate, but she's completed all of her subjects. And she is currently an accountant of Gino Coera & Co. She's an accountant of Your Web Accountant and also an accountant for their family-owned cleaning business as well. So just like to welcome her to the panel. Cherry is also a New England Award participant as well. So if anyone had any questions in a moment on the New England Award, please feel free to ask Cherry as well. She's got plenty of experience with that, and I might get her to include that in some of her personal bio. Next, I'd like to welcome to the panel Mr. Craig Cameron. He is an alumni of the Bachelor of Financial Administration in Accounting and Finance. He is also currently an Executive Director for Dixon Advisory. And thirdly, I'd like to welcome Sue Bussell, who completed a Bachelor of Arts and she's currently a Qantas Executive Manager of Industrial Relations. So with Sue, we've got also another idea of how you can go from being in a Bachelor of Arts to going into a very successful business career. So we did also have Diane Fernley-Jones. Oh, we do. There you are. Thank you. Excellent. So I'd also like to welcome Diane Fernley-Jones to the panel as well. She's completed an MBA with University of New England. She is currently an independent consultant, and also she coaches and mentors in management consulting, IT and advisory. So what I'll get you all to do to start off is, Sherry, if you'd like to start, just give a bit of an idea of what you've sort of studied and your work experience to date throughout your degree and following. And if each of you would like to do that, and then we'll open up the invitation for questions to students at both ends.
All right, I prepare quite a note here. Pardon. All right, I'm Cherry Dimapoulos. You can call me C for short. So I just finished my Master of Commerce in Professional Accounting under the IPA program, and I'm hoping to graduate in October of 2015. I go up in Armidale, so I hope to see you all guys there. Where are they? And also, I'm a recipient of New England Award. The New England Award, for those who have not heard about it, it's a prestigious award for students who have participated in extracurricular activities, whether it be sports, cultural, or paid, unpaid work, or anything, any contribution you've got for the community and to the university as a whole. So what it does really is like it gives value to your CV, and it provides evidence of your commitment to the graduate attributes, which you could like your communication skills, your social responsibility, your teamwork, your problem-solving skills. So if you put that in your resume, it's maybe Dixon Advisory here or Deloitte here would like, okay, she's got lots of extracurricular activities, not just the degree that you've got. So it's an added plus, you know. And apart from that, in saying that, in my own experience, I came from a country where English is second language. There's English there, but it's American language, not the Australian language that we have here. So it's at that time in 2011, when we came here as skilled migrants, the jobs for accountants is really, really tough. And I still had a little baby at that time, so managing my time between work and family commitments is really, really a pressure. But you really have to think what you want in your career. You really have to specify what your goals are and how to achieve it. Because if you do that, like in my case, I'm already an accountant in the Philippines for 8 years, so I really wanted to become an accountant, a practicing accountant here in Australia as well. So I make sure that my extracurricular activities and my community involvement is focused in that role, focused on that direction. So right now I did like lots of accounting, small accounting jobs, and during tax season, I'm a tax consultant of H&R Block. So I really like that job because you've got to mingle with all kinds of people, and you've got to develop your communication skills and all things like that. Apart from that, I've got leadership roles and treasury roles with Toastmasters Club. Not only develop my leadership skills, but also develop my communication skills. So it's like how you fit in with the environment. That's what's most important. And I think that's all for me. Thank you very much. So if you've got questions with New England Award, I'll be more than happy to give you some inputs. And also, I'm already a tax agent, so whoever had not done the tax return yet, you can come to me. No, just, yeah. can get my business cards later. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. So I did accounting and finance at the University of New England, and from Armidale I moved down to Sydney, which I started with National Australia Bank. My first job was a bank teller at King's Cross, and then from there worked up through the ranks of National Australia Bank into private banking, and then finally into financial planning in the city here. I worked at National Australia Bank for approximately 10 years, and from there I left and joined Dixon Advisory, moved down to Canberra for a couple of years and back to Sydney, opened up the Sydney office here, so I've been with them for 12 years. And there I was looking after the helping clients with their self-managed super funds, so they would set up a fund and then I'd look to invest their money on their behalf and manage those portfolios for them, and I've been doing that since I joined Dixon Advisory to date.
Good evening, my name's Sue Bussell and I work at Qantas Airways as Executive Manager Industrial Relations. I went to the University of New England after finishing a teaching diploma because I decided I didn't want to be a teacher, and university at that stage was one of the few that offered remote learning. So I worked as a full-time flight attendant whilst I was doing my degree. That was a very different proposition from today. We carried the books around in suitcases and did it all by mail, fundamentally. Having finished my degree, I left the job as a flight attendant and I became a research officer for a very large union that covered 40,000 employees in both post and telecommunications. Was involved in things like researching for the national wage case and those sorts of things, and really built on the experience I'd had as a student at University of New England. I was fortunate enough to then work for Ansett Airways as an industrial manager, and from there I was with the Australian Industry Group as a consultant, and then went back to Qantas after 10 years away from the organisation. I've been there for many years now and have been very fortunate in being involved in both human resources and industrial relations in that environment.
Hello everyone, I'm Diane Fernley-Jones. A little bit like Sue, I didn't go straight to university from school. In fact, I left school in England at the age of 16 and went into the civil service. After that, I spent some time in the British Armed Forces. Yeah, I know, I don't look it, but trust me, I was. And I can still carry the captain title today. I then came out to Australia, still with no formal degree, nothing more than O-levels, quite frankly, and began a career in IT. I chose that after leaving the army. It became very, very apparent that I was not going to make it into senior management without a master's degree, and the thought of starting with a bachelor's and then going on to a master's was all too much. So I looked around, and not only did UNE offer distance learning, which I needed because I was working full-time, but it also offered the opportunity to join the programme, and only by getting credits for the first 4 units are you allowed into the next one. So I actually quite liked the fact that they were pretty picky about whether you were going to get right the way through and end up with an MBA. I was delighted to say I did, and it was probably the single biggest thing that boosted my career onwards and upwards. I should say that after my degree, I then left Australia and took up a role as a Chief Information Officer across in Europe, in the Netherlands. I then worked out of London for a number of years, then returned to Australia, and my last sort of formal full-time role was with Leighton Contractors as their Chief Information Officer for the last 7 years of my full-time career, then been incredibly lucky in being able to step back and start and do a variety of different roles that my career and my degree has helped fit me for. So a little different to the rest of the guys here, but thank you.
Testing. Okay, great. So now we'd like to open the invitation. Thank you very much, everybody, on the alumni panel. We'd like to open the invitation to all of the students and attending lecturers in Armidale, and also to all of the students and attending lecturers or staff here at Parramatta as well. So please do raise your hand if you have any questions for any of the members of our alumni panel. Yep.
I'm studying the Bachelor of Business. Is this on? And I'm working full-time, have 2 children, and gone back as a mature age student, so it works really well for myself. And I actually went and started the teaching degree myself a couple of years ago and realised that I didn't want to be sitting in a classroom with 30 children for the rest of my life, so I decided I would step back into the role that I was already in. I'm in a business in pharmaceuticals, actually, and I've been there for 12 years in the office. Thoroughly enjoy it. My question would be around going to that next level after I finish my degree, getting the master's degree. Is that something that, you know, for you know, especially a woman going back into the workforce and getting her, you know, that first degree, would that be something that you would suggest to do, the MBA afterwards? Or, I mean, you've both got 2 different degrees, so.
My personal view would be, if you are really aiming for senior management in any of the larger organisations, quite frankly, if I applied for a CIO role, if I didn't have an MBA, I wouldn't have made it off the stack of CVs. It really is. It's almost the entry point. And that was why I had to do mine. And I started in 92 and graduated, I think, in 96. Might have been 91, finished a bit earlier, graduated in 96. So I would strongly say yes. However, don't just go straight from one to the other. Give yourself a break. I take my hat off to you doing it with a family. Do you have a thought, Steve?
I do a lot of recruitment at Qantas, and I would agree with that. Yeah, it is getting tougher for people to just get off that CV list. Having said that, I wouldn't necessarily. That's about senior management. So getting experience, and I think someone earlier today talked about just getting in through the door. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. So you can be doing both at the same time, though it sounds like you've got quite a handful and you're already doing a few things. But it doesn't mean you've got to sit where you are and do your degree and then go looking for another job. You can do both of those in parallel.
And this is for Sherry in regards to the extracurriculum activities with the New England Award. I do a lot of charity work through my work as well, and I also do outside work as well with my children and that sort of thing. So is that something that I should be looking into at the New England Award?
Yeah. From my experience, what I did, I've got lots of extracurricular activities, but what you have to do is you contact Alicia, the manager of the New England Award, and let Alicia tick if it adds points to that New England Award, because what happens in New England Award, you've got to have 1,000 points. That 1,000 points is a number of extracurricular activities that includes your the one that you're doing. So even if you've already done that, but during your degree, you're still doing it, she might give you a tick. So and then she'll let you know what sort of other activities that you need to do. And from my experience, like yourself, you've got 3 kids, I've got 2 kids, and I'm doing, yeah. Oh, you've got 2, I've got 2. And they're small kids. I've got 2 years old and 8 years old. It's really tough to do the master's degree, but you are lucky to be in the University of New England because there's flexible learning here, so I can do my assignments when the kids are already in bed. Yeah. Or if I want to go away with the kids, I go to FutureCampus. It's a quiet place there, and then especially during deadlines, it's a very good space. I'm also lucky to be one of the part-time or casual student officer here in FutureCampus. I know the place. It's really good. I recommend that to you, and thanks to Rob. Yeah. So contact Alicia.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions up in Armidale?
Yep, we've got a question coming from Kanita.
Hi, I'm studying a Bachelor of Chinese Language and Business. I don't have any corporate business experience. I work part-time. With the Bachelor of Chinese Language and Business, I don't actually have any business majors, so it's not like in marketing or accounting. Where would you recommend that I sort of go from here? Do you have any recommendations from a business perspective?
That might be a good one for you to advise on, Craig. And also, like, if Inam or Richard would like to come up the front, feel free at any time.
Look, yeah, I'm not really sure myself. Look, I think if you just look for different businesses that you have some interest in, that have got some background in the Chinese language or what have you, it just gets the start into a business. Like for mine, it could be a smaller organisation or even a larger one where you start somewhere and there's other opportunities that come along that'll help you get started. A lot of times I see, people who work for us, they might even work for us for a year or two, but then that gives them an opportunity to move into a business where they really want to go to. So you hardly ever get the perfect job to start with. Like my perfect job wasn't being a bank teller to start with, but being in a large organisation, you're able to pick and choose where you go to. So trying to find that perfect one straight off is difficult. So it's just trying to firm, and depending on what your skills or how well you go, it'll give you a better network or opportunities to look for the area that you finally want to settle in.
You might actually want, I don't know how far through your degree you are, but you might want to actually start picking some of those other subjects to go with your language. Or if you have a predilection towards marketing, you might want to do a few courses in that so that you do have some of that technical skill.
Fantastic. Any further questions up there?
Can I just ask, there's been a lot of talk about soft skills, and I just wondered if somebody might like to comment on what were the best ways to develop those skills.
Soft skills, so that's really just interacting with other people. So, you see, potential employees coming in, and they would have done a diverse range of things. And it could be as simple as working in a retail environment. It could be, even in sporting teams, or taking on extra roles inside that sporting team, like organising it or doing events, all those type of things. It's really taking an interest in the other people around you. And that can also come through, doing extra work through charities or things like that. And it could be as simple as, you might have, for example, a sick grandmother or something like that, where you've actually helped them go through a process to help them when they can't do things for themselves. Like there's a whole range of things those soft skills come through. It's really just learning to have that empathy for other people and being able to sit down and discuss that and let your employer know, or find a way of getting that across to when you're actually speaking in that interview, to let the employer know that there's the type of things you've been doing. Some people it comes really naturally to. Other people have to put themselves in that situation to try and learn those skills. And it's just by being there and doing it at the time that you'll actually end up learning those skills.
And to build on that, I think even if you have an intuitive empathy for others, doing things like performance reviews, those kinds of things, or even, heaven forbid, but redundancy type interviews, not only does it need a great deal of empathy, but frankly it does need a lot of training. How do you phrase that correctly? How do you share that information with people? Most employers, in the larger employers, will actually give training in that, and that seriously, take it very, very seriously. Even ask your sort of direct team to work with you to allow you to even have a go at it, rather than having to do it cold for the first time, the real thing. Because it is very, very difficult to try and work with people to get them to understand sometimes an area where they need to develop further, particularly if you're a young manager, and you're actually talking to a much older person. Those kinds of things are quite tough to do. So take advantage of your employer. Certainly go work with the human resources team or the people development team in those organisations and ask for the help. They'll be delighted that they actually have employees that want to learn. Most people just try and avoid it. Please don't do that. So do take it to the next level. Or if you do have to build on that.
Okay, I might just forward a question on to any of you, but I also think, Cherry, you'd be great to answer this one. Is when a student has gone through their entire degree, learning all of these different activities, and then they come out, for example, in accounting or even just general business, they're then asked to use a whole myriad of computer programs. They're asked to be, they have demands in customer service. Like for me coming straight into a job, it was right, let's learn how to use Outlook. Let's learn how we use Outlook also to communicate. Coming to FutureCampus, it was how can we use video conferencing? How can we use technology? How can we speed up our productivity by utilising that technology? But also with accounting and things like that, also using, learning to use the actual accounting programs, because not every business does use the same programs. And same goes for anything with statistics as well. Learning to put together a quote, things like that. So how can any of you advise on coming out of a degree where you may not have actually been asked to use those programs in the professional sense, or had the opportunity to be in an internship or job situation? For example, Woolies, you might not be asked to ever do that. How can you go about learning those skills during the course of your actual degree studies?
All right. From my own experience, really, aside from doing my degrees, I've got these other trainings like Excel. I always wanted to learn how to use like other softwares. Way back in my home country, we use these QuickBooks, but here in Australia we use Smile. But they're entirely similar, just different platform. It's just how you prepare yourself on learning all these things. Just like in my accountant job in Gino Coera's office. And when he told me he needs someone in his office, I go in there. It's part of the networking of IPA that I meet Gino. And he wants me to use this online SMSF. I haven't learned that one in my entire life. But I nailed it because the platform is different. But when you already know what you're doing, you can actually tick on those things, and then it turned out to be some of them are right, some of them are wrong, and your employer will be happy to, okay, let's do this next time. Let's do this next. It's a learning process. So apart from the degree, I would say you should be always ready to learn other soft skills, like doing any technical softwares, whatever, because you'll never know. The employers might want you to use Outlook, and then you already know about it. Or maybe you don't know about it, but you've got this other software that is quite similar. So, yeah, from my own experience, aside from the degree, I do other things. But because you'll never know, you'll use it in the professional side of your career,
Well, I could only support what Jerry said. I think that whatever people go into or whatever they learn at university these days, it's going to change, and it's changing at such an incremental rate that the most important thing is to keep a plastic mind about it, to be prepared to build on what you already know. And in a sense, it's a shared responsibility. You have a responsibility to be open to the learning, to take the opportunity when you can. But an employer, if they introduce new systems, as they inevitably will, also has an obligation to assist you in learning that and giving you the opportunity to do it.
Many employers will also, if they're using the Microsoft suite of products will have online learning available for that. But you can also have a look on the internet yourself if you actually know what they use and want to get a bit of a head start on that one. Crack on with it is all I would say. Thank you.
Any other questions in Armidale or Parramatta? Yep.
No more questions here, Elise.
No worries, Lou. One more here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christine Rosandi. I'm a postgraduate student. I'm learning HR. I was thinking of doing an MBA, but I thought I'd take it a step at a time and do a postgraduate certificate first, and then have a taste of it and see whether I can successfully finish this and move on, or just be happy with the certificate. I'm in a career transition. I had a degree in engineering, and I worked in that field for over 10 years. Unfortunately, a few years ago, I was made redundant, but I took that as an opportunity to spend more time with the family and to be a carer. And now I have the opportunity to move on from that and pick up where I left off. Actually, I was in engineering, but then the last placement was in HR as a training consultant. But I didn't have the HR qualification. That's why I'm doing this postgrad. So I am also looking for work in HR, but I haven't been successful in getting an interview. So any tips from HR here on someone with a different background before and moving to a different field?
The first thing I'd say about careers these days, and I speak as one who has moved through various organisations but also had a considerable time in my last role, is that's just not the norm anymore. It really, you can anticipate that you will change employers, that there will be redundancies and or departing from organisations in a various range of ways. So I think there has to be that expectation, and people have to realise it's not a sense of failure or something going wrong, but just the normal cycle of things. Changing a career as you've done is a very courageous thing to do, and something that should be really applauded. In terms of HR, it is often the case that people haven't come from just doing an HR degree. Many have come through the business, and in places like Qantas we do have people who've come out of engineering, though I must say that's more unusual than some of the other fields. I think it is a case that you just have to keep plodding on. You have to put yourself forward, and as I say, and see it in a very positive light. I wouldn't. I don't think you can underestimate the importance of LinkedIn and getting that profile right. And I think other people have spoken about that tonight. But certainly more and more recruiters and HR people are using LinkedIn to profile using keywords to find applicants for jobs rather than advertising.
Just a thought, is it worth you trying to target organisations where the fact that you have been an engineer will actually stand you in good stead for talking with their workforce? Even though you no longer want to be in the engineering field, perhaps that's a thought. And if you are applying for a role within a company like that, make that one of your great selling points. I know what makes engineers tick. I used to be one. That sort of thing. So actually play it up rather than play it down and make it a positive. Yeah? Just a thought. Yeah.
Okay, everyone, that's about as much time as we've got for the initial career development session. I'd just like to thank all of our speakers today. I'd like to thank Rob Field for allowing me to run this event and host it, and working together with Dr. Lou Conway and also Jade Hauser from the Business School. I'd like to also thank Michelle Goyen, John McKinnon, Richard Hambley, Inam Haq, all of our UNE Alumni Panel participants, Cherry, Craig, Sue and Diane. And look, we are aiming to run these sessions more in the future. We're hoping this event can be a yearly event, so particularly college students up there in Armidale, and also our online students down here in Parramatta, please do tell all of your peers about this event, because we'd like to get the awareness and the focus on your employability improved, and also for allowing you the tools to strengthen your graduate reputation throughout your degree. So from here on in, we'll say farewell to Armidale. Thank you very much for everybody for attending. And we'll then move forward to our networking session in Parramatta. Big round of applause.
But thank you, Elise, and a very hearty thank you from us here in Armidale too. Bye.